All right, good evening, everyone, or afternoon, depending on whenever you're watching this. It's not the time of our class. This is Tuesday, not Monday. We had the holiday yesterday. Today, though, we're going to look at all the videos that you send in, as many as we can get done, of talks 1 or 2, depending on which one you chose. I'm going to show them all online. While you're looking at these, there is a file I encourage you to open and just review it as you're looking at either talk 1 or talk 2. There's a file there. I've got a little half sheet of it, and yours is a quarter sheet. And it just lists the criteria that we're thinking about, that I'm looking at when I'm evaluating, same things that you're seeing there. Was the introduction brief, accurate, appropriate? Did the speaker build enthusiasm? Did the introducer build enthusiasm for the speaker, establish the speaker's credibility? And then how did the presenter do? Did they project enthusiasm? Did they speak clearly, distinctly, use appropriate eye contact and movements that are appropriate for this talk? Then in talk 2, there's another sheet for that one. When we get to the talk 2 talks, be sure and refer to this. And the purpose is for you to learn. You're going to observe other people and critique them, meaning what they did well, what they could improve on, what their strength is as a speaker. That's what we hope to find out as we look, or hope to learn about ourselves, hope to identify in others as they speak in this course. So look through the sheet for number 2. You're telling a story, giving an illustration, either a biblical story or one from real life. Did they introduce well? Did they set up to tell a good story? Did the speaker project enthusiasm? So there's criteria that I'm looking through for this little half sheet, and I write it down and then post into Canvas my comments with this rubric that you're going to see for each of the talks there. When we get to 5, 6, and 7, I'll have a whole sheet that I'll upload as I look at more criteria that we're using. The purpose today is for you to present your talks and us to interject or interact with you visually. If we were in the room, I'd ask for you to give some feedback, just to encourage one another. We all are in the task. We're all going to learn from each other. Some of us are going to do things afterwards. We go, oh, why did I do that? And you're going to find out the impact is, it was not that major in the great scheme of things. Other things we're going to go, ooh, wow, work on that one. But then for the vast majority, we're going to go, I like that. How would I do it a little differently? And we're going to learn from each other and use our own speaking voice when we speak too as well. Then after we get done watching them for 2 hours, I'm going to introduce talks 3 and 4, because next week you're going to come back and present talks 3 and 4. If I have the schedule correct, I'll clarify that on the break. I don't have my schedule here right with me, but I'll call it up there to make sure I'm speaking well. But follow the schedule for next week. It has textbook 17, chapter 17 and 18, talks 3 and 4, outline and manuscript. So you're going to present those talks next week like you did this week. Choose one of the talks, 3 or 4, and then present, do your outline, write your manuscript for whichever talk you're selecting, then come ready to make the presentation in class, if you're in class, or send me the video beforehand, before Monday at noon, if you can, and upload it into Canvas. A lot of you uploaded into Canvas. A number of you had to send an email, not email, but send me a YouTube link. That's just fine. Some of you have had some new options, but I think they're all still going to work. They aren't MP4 files, they're some other form, and I'm delighted to learn how those work too. If anyone is having issues about how to get the video to me, if you put it into Teams, it's there. You don't have to send it into Canvas. If you put it into Canvas, it's there. I'll find it. If you have to send me a link in YouTube, well then also post the link into Canvas in your assignment for presentation. That way you've got it in Canvas, you know it's there, I'll find it there. But let's make sure we get it together and I get the videos, that's the main thing. Let me lead us in a word of prayer as we prepare our hearts to listen and talk and learn. Father, we just thank you for this evening and for the time to get together just to encourage one another. That's what we want to do. We're all at the same level. We all need to talk. Yes, we all have different abilities, different experience with public speaking. But Lord, we all can do better. We just can. We sometimes get bad habits. We need to correct those. So Lord, wherever we're at, we want to learn and process that. So bless the students as they watch themselves, as they watch others. We learn from each other. That's our prayer. But most of all, Jesus, you be glorified through our lives as we do this skill of speaking. For Christ's sake, amen. All right, I hope I do the technology well where you're just seeing the individual present, and I'll have a comment after each, and then we'll go from there. You do not have to turn in these sheets that you're using. Rather, just use them to refer to as you watch each of the people. Abigail LePage, talk number 1.
Hello everyone, and welcome to the 2021 President's Dinner. Thank you for joining us as we celebrate the inauguration of Dr. Alexander Granados.
I'm going to stop and start over. Abigail, I want to make sure everybody gets set up well.
Hello everyone, and welcome to the 2021 President's Dinner. Thank you for joining us as we celebrate the inauguration of Dr. Alexander Granados. I hope you all have enjoyed your evening so far. Today is a day that signifies a new chapter for Calvary University. Not only are we celebrating the inauguration of a new president, Dr. Alexander Granados, but we are also celebrating another year of Calvary University. Our speaker for today is someone many of you may know. Prior to his time at Calvary, our speaker received his master's degree from Dallas Theological Seminary and later became the pastor for 16 years of City Church Lawrence, a house church located in Lawrence, Kansas. He first joined the faculty of Calvary University in the summer of 2018. He originally worked in the Marketing and Communications Department, but later fully transitioned to his current role as the Ministry Studies Department Chair. Our speaker will be honoring Dr. Alexander Granados this evening, as well as celebrating the accomplishments of Calvary University. Introducing Sean LePage.
Great. Let's stop this, make sure. All right, Abigail, very good. Very clear, distinct voice. Set the context. We would have been in the meeting to know, and definitely gave adequate background so we had a flavor for what the person was doing. What the person's qualifications were. It's the President's Dinner, somebody on faculty. Would you have known, should you have known what topic they were speaking on? Probably not at an event like this. So your background is, we're at a President's Dinner, the context. We're going to have one of the faculty come up, and he's qualified because of his pastoral ministry now to serve in the role that he has at Calvary. Let's give attention to him as he comes to encourage us this evening. Great, good stuff. Thanks, Abigail, breaking the ice for us. Andrew Meyer.
Good evening. In just a moment, you will all hear from Jennifer Meyer.
All right, I'm going to back you up again just so we can do this well.
Good evening. In just a moment, you will all hear from Jennifer Meyer, the director of the Southside Striders Homeschool Marching Band. She has been involved in music since her time in high school, where she played clarinet and developed a keen desire to pursue music. From there, she attended college to obtain a degree in music education. Once graduated, she worked as an elementary school music teacher for several years before taking a break from professional music education to raise and teach her own children. Years later, she started a band, partnered with a local music store, and began her service to the homeschool community. Once established, she labored to provide the unique experience and familial bond of a marching band to her community. Folks, that is the character of Mrs. Meyer at its most simple, loving labors and hard work to provide exemplary opportunities to the next generation of musicians. Now I hope you will all join me in providing a hearty welcome to Jennifer Meyer.
Yay. All right, Yeah. We got this in. Like the wording, something about enthusiasm. I'm just going to write it down. Things go so fast. You're with your manuscript. Once you write your outline, give those categories of thought, and then you have your opening sentences. Now you're crafting wording that helps us to understand the sense, and it has to come in phrasing. And so you had expressive enthusiasm, something like that. I like that. Thanks, Andrew. Brooke Morris. Okay. Stand by.
Good afternoon, students. We have a special guest speaker with us today who will be speaking on the topic of Generation Z. Our speaker was born in Leavenworth, Kansas, but grew up in Charleston, West Virginia. When she was 3 years old, her parents shared the gospel with her, and she believed in Jesus as her Savior. She holds several degrees from various universities, including a bachelor's degree in elementary education from West Virginia State College, a master's degree in counseling from Biblical Theological Seminary, and a doctorate in educational ministry from Midwestern Baptist Theological Seminary. She has been involved in ministry for over 30 years. She served as a summer missionary with Child Evangelism Fellowship in West Virginia during her teenage years. In 1989, God called her to move to Brooklyn, New York, where she faithfully served with Child Evangelism Fellowship of Greater New York City for 26 years. She served as the Brooklyn Ministries Coordinator for 18 years and also served as the Director of Training for the Greater New York City area for 8 years. She moved to Warrenton, Missouri in 2015 and has worked at Child Evangelism Fellowship International Headquarters for the past 5 years. She is very passionate about Generation Z, which was the topic of her doctoral dissertation. Her passion comes from her experience with teaching children and working alongside a Generation Zer for the past 3 years. She has created both a 12-week online course and a seminar on ministry to Generation Z. She has also had the privilege to speak on this topic in other avenues. Please welcome our speaker, Dr. Faith Dugan.
Very good, Brooke. Good eye contact. Now, you all are looking at a camera, or you're sitting at a camera, and maybe you have a script, you have your computer in front of you. For these talks, if you can, look at the camera so we know your eye contact, which will allow me then to see when you look down at your notes and when you look back at the audience. And the audience is our camera, so use the camera if you would. Brooke's a good example of what you do. She did have notes and she looked at them, but knew her manuscript well enough that she could look primarily at the audience. You don't have to do that. She had a lot of details. In a talk like this, the more comfortable you are, the better it is to look at the audience. But if you're looking down and reading the details, like she gave the background of that person, and then you look up at a pause point, that's where in your manuscript you're giving a white space between the paragraphs. That's where you know I can stop and look up and then come back down to my next section. All right. But a very good talk, very good, clear, distinct voice. Holly Matthews.
Members of the Homeschool Legal Defense Association Board and all parents new to the homeschooling world, welcome. Having been thoroughly immersed in the homeschooling community, today's speaker is very experienced and knowledgeable on the subject. As a homeschooling mom of 25 years, she is here at this HSLDA public meeting to provide insight on how to start homeschooling your children for the very first time. Like many of us gathered here, our guest speaker first learned about homeschooling from a friend. Feeling that homeschooling was the direction the Lord wanted her to take in giving her children the best possible education, she set out to accomplish what many of you are facing now, the learning curve of getting started. Homeschooling has been very rewarding for both her personal growth and that of her children. She believes homeschooling is a powerful way to honor Christ and present a solid foundation for a Christian worldview. As if homeschooling all 5 of her children wasn't enough, our guest speaker has taught 3 classes for a co-op organization called Helping Other Parent Teachers, or HOPE. She is also an HSLDA member herself and has guided many other parents new to homeschooling into getting started. In addition to all this, she once developed a curriculum of her own for her first child. It is easy to see that our guest speaker is more than qualified to offer you the most relevant and applicable information possible for your own journey. We are honored to hear from her how choosing the right curriculum for your child is a crucial step towards success. By speaking on getting to know the homeschool laws of your state and local regions, she intends to equip you towards legal accountability. We will also hear from her how to determine the different ways in which your child can learn, whether it be auditory, visual, academic, or kinesthetic learning. Homeschooling is difficult for any parent to do alone. Because of this, she intends to inform you on how to start exploring the social side of homeschooling by getting enrolled in local homeschool associations. Please give our accomplished and capable guest speaker, Paulette Matthews, a warm welcome.
Great. Very good. I like that you talked to us. You had us in mind. You had our issues in mind as the audience listening, and reminded us of things that we should be listening for as this speaker is talking, as well as definitely indicated their qualifications to speak to us. Thanks, Molly. Holly? Jacob Scott.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Jacob Scott, and tonight I have the honor of introducing the person who helped shape the theology of many, including me personally. He graduated from Trinity Evangelical Divinity School with a Master's of Divinity. For his undergraduate, he studied history and comparative religion with a focus on Islam. He grew up in a multi-ethnic family and had been to 30 different countries on 5 different continents before he even went to college. He is an award-winning author with his books such as What's Wrong with Religion?, What If Jesus Were Serious?, and With, Reimagining the Way You Relate to God. He's been quoted in the New York Times and is frequently featured on radio programs around the country. He also speaks regularly at churches, conferences, and colleges, here in the States as well as internationally. He served as a minister at Wellspring Alliance Church for 6 years. He is also the co-host of the extremely popular Holy Post podcast. He is a master of blending theology, culture, and comedy together to make complex issues simpler. He is a former Christianity Today executive and president of the Measure the Clouds nonprofit organization. Tonight we are blessed as he will talk to us about how the church should deal with cultural issues. Without any further delay, here is Sky Jithani.
Sky Jithani, good, cool. Hey, very good, Jacob. Wonder what was in your hand and why that was there. I don't remember that you used that. If you did, I missed it as I'm writing notes down. Definitely brought your comments back to the occasion, and us to listen to it definitely gave us a solid background. Good voice. I like your use of pauses. You paused, your intonation pattern as well as your pauses helped us to think about what you just said at crucial points. Very good, Jacob. Josiah Hackman.
Apostles Convention. Our speaker tonight is one many of you have come to know and love. His mission work throughout Asia and Europe has made him renowned the world over. However, he hasn't been such a champion for Christianity. In fact, as a young boy, our speaker studied the Jewish law under Gamaliel in Jerusalem. After his training, he became a full-fledged Pharisee. As a Pharisee, our speaker distinguished himself from his peers with zeal and attention to the law. This zeal for the lost spurred him on to vigorously persecute and torture the Christians in Jerusalem and the surrounding areas. It was during one of these raids that our speaker was met by a surprising visitor, Christ himself. This encounter completely changed the course of his life, changing him from being a hateful pursuer of the law to one who pursued the fulfillment of the law, which is Christ. Instead of persecuting the Christians, he joined them and became a key proponent of Christianity to the region and later to the whole world. Even to this day, our speaker has suffered much because of this transition in his life course. He's been arrested, imprisoned, beaten, stoned, and persecuted non-stop because of his unwavering devotion to Christ. In addition, his missionary work to the Gentiles is well known, traveling all around the known world, preaching, teaching, and planting churches in many cities. Thousands have been impacted by his ministry. Finally, our speaker has written 13 letters that have been included in the Bible. But if you ask our speaker about his credentials and all his accomplishments, you will find that he doesn't like to boast about them. In fact, he would rather boast about his weaknesses than everything that he has done. He realizes that in his own human strength he is nothing, and that who he is, his identity, is wrapped up in the person of Jesus Christ. Please join me in welcoming our keynote speaker, the Apostle Paul.
Very well done there, Josiah. Cool. Thank you for doing it that way. Good, strong voice, good background, good focus on his qualifications and what he's going to come and do. Karis Bar.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. It is my honor to introduce our guest speaker for today, J.K. Rowling. She was born July 31st, 1965. She grew up with a love for writing and completed her first novel at the age of 11. She is known for her Harry Potter series, which has sold over 5 million copies worldwide. She wrote and worked as a producer on the final films based on these books and has gone on to become the best-selling living author in Britain. Known for her love of children, she promotes multiple charities and is a strong advocate for the safety of women and children. Please welcome J.K. Rowling.
Ooh, very good. Very good, Karis. Good, short, brief. You're saying what needs to be said to get it out there. Some people, there's a little bit more background we give because that gives people connection, but you gave that which is very good. You said the name early. Is there anything magic to saying at the end? No. Is it inappropriate to say at the beginning? No, it's not. That's just one of the things that people tend to do is give the name at the end. But what you did was fine. It was clear. Oh, wow. Especially in a case where perhaps the person's not known. All right, I got the name. I'm going to say the name again. Good. Good presentation. Good introduction. Lydia Stalka.
Just a few notes before I begin my talk. One is that this is not an original story. I heard it a few years ago at a VBS I was helping with, or something, a story similar.
All right, Lydia, I had you down as, oh, cool. Lydia, I had you down as talk 1, is what I thought. Sounds like you're introducing talk 2, so let's all shift and make sure we have that sheet to look for a talk 2, because you're going to give a story. Lydia Stalka. So how does she present? Grab our attention, how does she tell the story, and then her animation as she's telling it so we sense the story and the flow and the point. That's the major part. All right, so Lydia, let's back you back up and start again.
But this is not an original story. I heard it a few years ago at a VBS I was helping with, or something, a story similar. Another note is that this talk is intended for an audience of about elementary age. We can learn a lot about who God is from the Bible. We can learn that God is loving. 1 John 4:8 tells us that. We also know that God is just. from the Bible. James 2:10 tells us that if someone messes up in just a little point, he is guilty of all. That means that everyone deserves to be punished. Some people wonder how these can both be true. How can God be loving but also want to punish people? I have a little story that can help you understand these. Once there lived a king. This was a very good king. He loved his subjects and he treated them fairly. He made sure that they all treated each other well by having rules. One of these rules was that stealing is wrong. For instance, if someone stole from the king's treasury, from his gold and stuff, then they would be whipped 40 times. Not with just a little whip either, with a huge whip that you might even bleed if you got whipped from it. There was something else that was true about the king. He had a daughter who he loved very much. He loved to read her stories. He loved to listen to her sing and play with her dolls. He loved his daughter so much. One day, the king heard that someone had stolen from his treasury. Everyone knew the rules. Why would they do this? He said. Who was it? He asked one of his subjects. They were quiet, but finally they answered. It was your daughter. The room was quiet. What would the king do? Surely he wouldn't punish his daughter. He loved her so much. The king said, she must be punished. The law must be kept. The room filled with a hush. The king was going to punish his daughter. The punisher came up to the little girl who was shaking. He came with the giant whip. He lifted it up, about ready to strike the girl. When the king said, "Wait!" he came over to the girl and he put his arms around her. He said, "Now you may do it." The king took the whip, the punisher took the whip, and he whipped the king instead of the daughter, as the daughter stayed in her father's protecting arms. Just like the king in the story, God made it so that we can escape the punishment for our sins. He is just, so our sins must be punished. But he loved us so much that he came down to earth and he paid the price that we deserve for our sins. He died the death that we all should die. Will you accept this gift from our loving and just God?
Very good, Lydia. Very good, Lydia. Thank you much. The setup, you gave us a context, a loving God, and then set a plot for us, gave enough details. You used drama, gestures, eye contact all throughout. Very well done. Excellent voice emphasis. You used emphasis. You talked at the points with more power, more volume to your voice, and variety. Good story. Good setup. Good truth to remind us at the end. All right, Madison Candler. Maddie, talk one, if I've got it right.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Today I have been given the honor of introducing my mom, Dana Candler, who is the author of the book First Love, which will be released next year. With her gift of intuition, raw honesty, and true understanding of the heart of the Lord brought by years of partnership with Him, Dana grabs the heart of every individual who reads her work. Dana Candler was born on December 19, 1976 in New Jersey. She moved to Moscow, Idaho at the age of 3 and lived there until the age of 12 when she moved to Oklahoma City. Her dad was the Nazarene pastor, and their family occasionally moved states so that he could pastor at different churches. Dana and her siblings Deborah and David are triplets, and she has another younger brother named Dan. Now Dana's parents host disciple-making conferences. Her brother David is planted at a church in Kansas City. Her sister Deborah helps lead the organization 111 Global, and her younger brother Dan is involved with Boulder Street Church in Colorado. In 1995, Dana began Bible school at Bethany Global University in Bloomington, Minnesota. 2 years later, she began to attend Grace Journey Bible School in Kansas City, and in 1999, she married Matthew Candler and helped begin the International House of Prayer in Kansas City. And she is a part of the ministry to this day. Dana is on the staff and is a teacher at the church's university, I Help You. Dana Candler has published 3 books, Deep Unto Deep in 2004, Entirety in 2008, and Mourning for the Bridegroom in 2010. Each book beautifully displays the heart of the Lord and who He truly is, causing the reader to be captivated by the person of Jesus. Dana's relationship with the Lord and what she has learned through years spent with Him is poured out upon the pages, giving the reader insight on living in and through Him in His divine love. Her new book, soon to be released, encapsulates the need of passion for Jesus in the midst of a world resisting Him, and how we must return to our first love. So now, ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming Dana Candler.
Very good. All right. Yep. Thank you, Maddie, for introducing your mom there. Good background, good qualifications, good sense of her life and her burdens there. Just one little observation. At the end of some of your sentences, you let your voice drop off and it perhaps gets a little indistinct. Yeah, we heard it. Maybe part of the struggle would be with the video, the recording, the audio rather, but it was obvious at some point you let your voice in and it almost sounds clipped. Speak all the way through the end of your sentences so they're clear and distinct all the way to the end of them. Well, good. Thank you, Maddie. Noel Mutiso.
Ladies and gentlemen, it is I will begin with a statement by Howard Hendricks that I read on an article this morning, and it says, "The greatest threat to Christianity is trying to sneak into heaven incognito without ever sharing your faith." It is a great pleasure for me to introduce our speaker today, who is going to talk about the lost art of discipleship. Why does he describe it as a lost art? Well, we'll discover that salvation is free, but discipleship will cost everything that we have. Our speaker this morning pastored Nairobi Chapel in 1999. We've probably heard of Word of Life New York. Well, he's the founder of Word of Life Uganda, and he founded it in 2002. He then became the field director in 2003. In 2011, he was promoted to be the zone leader in East and Central Africa. In 2018, he became the regional director of Africa before he retired. Currently, he is the regional and operations director of Africa in 2 organizations, Livio Mission and Christian Mission Aid in Nairobi. He obtained his diploma in biblical studies from Word of Life New York in 1994. In 2002, he graduated with a Bachelor of Science in Bible from Tennessee Temple University and is currently undertaking his Master's in Biblical Studies at Virginia Beach Theological Seminary. We are privileged to have with us an experienced field director with a demonstrated history of working with youths in religious institutions. For over 30 years, he has led Christian camp ministries as well as started churches and schools with an aim of reaching the next generation. In his different leadership posts, he will tell us how other men walked with him and how he walked with other men. Were there godly and ungodly women involved in all that? He is going to give us lots of practicality in discipleship. So please join me in welcoming Mr. Thomas Obunde.
Thomas Obunde. Good. Noel, thank you very much. Very well done. Good eye contact, great enthusiasm. That's what we want to have. And the focus is on the speaker. You even use some gestures. That's natural. Do what's natural to you. On a talk like this, you aren't expecting movement, but boy, if it comes naturally, don't hinder it. Footnote, I know Thomas Obundi. I went to teach in Uganda at the Word of Life compound and met Thomas there. A delightful time spent there. Say hi to Thomas if you see him soon. Owen Challey.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for joining me today. My name is Owen Challey.
Let me back
Good
up.
afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for joining me today. My name is Owen Challey, and today I have the honor of introducing my friend who has always been on fire for God. Many of you all know her from Calvary University. She was born on December 2nd, 2004 in Kansas City, Missouri. She has lived in Kansas City her entire life. God started his work on her at a very young age. She was 5 years old when she was saved, and a little later on in life, at 12 years old, she was baptized. As she continued to grow in faith, God worked on her life in many different ways. Her strong passion for Christ led to singing at the Global Prayer Room at 13 years old. A year later, when she was 14, she preached at a women's conference. She also helps lead prayer with her classmates at her school. Going forward, God is still calling her life to ministry in many ways. She's a heart for children as she helps teach them God's Word, and God is continuing his work on Maddie through high school as she plans to take an internship at her church. And without further ado, give it up for Maddie Candler.
Maddie. All right, there we've got several that are online. You know each other good. And Maddie, you're both in the same area here. Both here in the Kansas City area is what I'm trying to say. Good eye contact. I don't know if you had something behind you, behind the camera, but it looked very natural, like it was knowledge. You knew the person, you know the background. There will be other times that you need to have the details, so when you come to those, practice like you practice this and feel the comfort level, but don't be afraid to make sure you stay on track with your notes to get accurate information, not to read the notes. But you did well. Thank you, Owen. Robbie Logan.
Good evening and welcome to our very first meeting for this brand new small business support group. We're very glad to have you all here and very thankful that you all could come here and support each other in this way. As you know, small businesses are not easy to grow. For our very first meeting, we do have a special guest. She is somebody that's always been super motivated and works independently and has always desired to get things accomplished. For all of her life, she's always strived to do the very best at everything that she puts her hands on. In 2007, she graduated from Grace Christian School as valedictorian. She went on to graduate from Frontier School of the Bible in 2010, also as valedictorian, with a bachelor's degree in biblical studies. For the next 2 years, she went back to Grace Christian School, where she spent time developing and teaching a brand new kindergarten program. After that, she served as a missionary for 5 years at Grace Farm, which is a brand new, at that time, developing Bible camp in rural North Georgia. While she was serving in that capacity, she noticed that there was a need for some web online presence for that camp ministry. So she began to develop her skills in a way that could fit that need. And she was self-taught in some web design and graphic design. She further developed her photography and videography skills, and she put all that to use in order to make an online presence for that camp. After she was done serving in that capacity, she decided that she wanted to start her own business in 2018. So while working full-time with special education, she's been developing and growing this business called Grace Collective Shop. You can find her at www.gracecollectiveshop.com. But she's taken these skills that she learned from web design and graphic design, she's put that to use to build her own business over time with the idea of one day being able to support herself as a stay-at-home mom. She's very good at what she does. Her social media presence has even drawn the attention of somebody named Chip Gaines, who actually donated $1,000 for her to finish her home office. We are very blessed to have her here where she can share some tips with us and teach us some things about growing our own small businesses. Please welcome the CEO of Grace Collective Shop and my wife, Ashley Logan.
There you go. Thanks, Logan. Good enthusiasm, natural movement, good eye contact. Your context you said at the beginning for the people, remind the context, as well as then communicate details about the speaker and the context that connect together. That's what we're about. You all are doing very well. This is good. Good introductions. Sage Friedline. Sage, I hope I pronounced your last name correctly. Sage Friedline.
Ladies, our next speaker is a highly educated and experienced dancer. She has kindly accepted our invitation to speak at this women's conference about the impact of dance on a child's development. This talented woman began dancing in Colorado when she was 4 years old. She soon fell in love with the art of dance, and after she graduated high school, she moved to Kansas City to study at the Sterling Conservatory, where she was taught by renowned dance instructors. After graduating from the conservatory, she both learned and taught dance all over the United States and Europe. Along with dance, our speaker also loves human growth and development, child psychology, and the brain. She is fascinated with how child development and dance go hand in hand, and she loves sharing with others what she has learned and studied. She sees her work of teaching as a ministry, and she seeks to share the goodness and love of God with her students and their families. Our speaker now resides in Missouri with her husband. Not only does she run a small farm, sell its produce, and dance as a Sterling Conservatory member, she also teaches dance to children in Kansas at Greenleaf Performing Arts Academy. She says that her passion is to inspire and enhance lives for the better with the healing of movement. She is passionate about dance as an expression of worship and art, and she aims to share that passion wherever she goes. Ladies, please warmly welcome our wonderful speaker, Ivy Udaly.
Cool, great. Welcome, Ivy. We're going to do that. Lots of enthusiasm, good variety, emphasis of your voice, your face, eye contact, and expressiveness. Very good, very positive. This is not a correction, it's not a negative, but as you write your manuscripts, yes, you're going to have your personality there, and so let me just point out, Sage, you used a couple words, renowned, and I forget there was a word right at the beginning. When we use adjectives, be careful to make sure they're precise and don't come across as overstatement of it. Now, again, I don't know if those are inappropriate. They're renowned school, great. But look at the context with your audience, look at your purpose, the audience for the context of what words would communicate what you're trying to say about the quality of the training, the quality of the person. All right, real good. Let's move on to Tori Andrews, our last number one.
Welcome everyone to this beautiful venue in Sunshiny Day. Today's speaker is a multi-talented barista, entrepreneur, and someone who happens to be my best friend. She is here to teach us all about the importance of positive consumer interactions as it pertains to both your job, small business, or ministry. Our speaker today has a passion for loving people that stems from her relationship with God. She's been able to perfect her customer service as a barista in one of our most popular local coffee shops. There's never been a better job for her to showcase her ability to love others. She has an incredible ability to remember patrons' names and orders, which shows them that she cares about who they are on a deeper level. Everyone is known and loved by her. Now, living in the Pacific Northwest, or PNW as we call it, which prides itself on encouraging and supporting small businesses, she excels at growing her entrepreneurial spirit as well. She'll be the first to tell you that taking care of customers means having great communication skills. Couple this with valuing them and their time, she also includes appreciation gifts in every online order. She loves living in Oregon and promotes shopping local. Lastly, and most importantly, our speaker is also involved in ministry and brings her relationship skills to reach out to young people in our community. Her love for God overflows in this context as well, as high schools are certainly drawn to her. She truly lives out the verse in 1 Corinthians 10:31, which says, "So whether you eat or drink or whatever you do, do all for the glory of God." I would be remiss if I didn't also mention how much she loves her husband James and her two fur babies, Ben and Annie. Please welcome me and joining my very best friend to the stage and one of the nicest people I know, Mrs. Kaylee Ahi.
Cool. Very good, Tori. Very good, distinct voice. Very good presence. A lot of you did this. You're mentioning specific qualities and strengths that the person has that not only make them the kind of person you want to listen to, but the person that you want to listen to about the topic. A number of you said that. I'm just trying to highlight something that I saw there in Tori's. Ending with a very personal dimension brings life to the person, brings reality. There's a connectedness that you have with the speaker, but that almost is a vicarious connection that we have. Don't overdo it. You didn't, but did you? I hope you all sensed that when an introducer does that, you're bringing the reality of the person beyond just their qualifications, academics, their business acumen. You're bringing that humanity in, and that gives that personal connection with the speaker. Very good. Very well done. All right, we're out of. Let me check and make sure again. We're out of our talk number 2. We have maybe, I think, one more in Canvas, but let's take a break. We've been going a good 45 minutes now. We'll take a 5-minute break and come back. All right, we're going to go into the rest of the talks that have been submitted, some in Canvas, some through Teams, and then several with YouTube. But I encourage you to keep close by those rubric sheets that I have for Talk 1. Talk 2 now, we're going to listen to Ella Starkjohn as she presents her illustration.
Once told a story to illustrate the worth of God's kingdom. Let me tell you this story in modern terms. Imagine a young man who's out exploring in the countryside. He wanders along a newly harvested field of corn. Suddenly, a gleam catches his eye. Upon examining it further, the man finds a great treasure. He finds stacks of gold and silver in the form of bars and coins. He also finds many precious diamonds and emeralds and rubies. As you can imagine, the man is extremely excited. He hastily reburies the treasure and fixes the spot in his memory. He knows that the field is for sale, so he decides to do whatever it takes to buy it. In order to do this, the man must sell many of his things, but he does this with joy, knowing the treasure that awaits him in his field. The man goes and sells his car, his apartment, his sports equipment, his extra clothes, his TV, and even his new smartphone. When he has sold everything but the clothes on his back, the man now has enough money to buy the field. The land deed is soon signed, and the treasure is his, making him the richest man in that entire area. Jesus told this story to illustrate the worth of God's kingdom. Gaining Jesus in his kingdom is worth anything, even giving up a new car, a hobby, or a sinful habit. Even if someone loses everything because they've decided to follow Jesus, which does happen in several countries, what they gain in Jesus is worth far more. Let me read you some of Paul's words in Philippians 3:7-9. For whatever gain I had, I count as loss for the sake of Christ. Indeed, for his sake I have suffered the loss of everything and counted as rubbish, in order that I may gain Christ and be found in him. Thank you.
Hey, very good. Very good, Ella. Very enthusiastic. Use the contemporary background to tell the parable, or contemporary items, illustrations. Good voice, good gestures, clear point. We don't have to make the point at the beginning. That sometimes helps. We definitely need to say it at the end. Tell the story or set up the story, maybe with a question. Tell the story. Make sure you tell us the point. Did well. Very good. Emmeline Starkjohn.
One of the problems my dogs have had is fleas. Since I'm a dog breeder, this creates a problem. I can't send puppies home with fleas. Just like fleas are hard to control, so are little sins. One day, my sister Elise and I were getting a puppy ready to go when she called me over. Come on, look at this. What? I said, look, right here. I went over and examined the puppy who was crawling with fleas. Fleas are no bigger than a tiny pinhead, yet they bite ferociously and multiply fast. I went inside and informed the lady coming she'd have to wait until the puppy was treated for fleas. Then I went to look in my dog supplies to see if there's something to treat fleas. Pulling out a bottle labeled flea dip, I thought, this ought to work. It didn't. We dipped the puppy and dipped the puppy over and over, and yet it did not work. The fleas crawled and they bit. They crawled and bit me. They made it into my bed at night. And I discovered my other 3 dogs also had fleas, plus all the other puppies. I realized I needed something more than dip to treat the dogs with. Calling up my vet, she told me I need a small vial of chemicals called a spot-on to treat each dog with. So I did that, and it helped. The puppies were able to go home. But the problem was far from over. The cats had fleas. So the entire process started over. We kept treating them, and yet it was nearly a month until the problem was over. And then only because a frost came along to kill the final survivors. It was then I realized I needed to have the dogs on a summer flea preventative. And then this might not have happened. If only I'd done that, I thought. If only I'd done that. maybe we wouldn't have had this problem. In our lives, we often forget to take our preventative for sin, reading our Bibles and praying and growing our relationship with God. Little sins creep in and grow, and by the time we realize it, they are huge and growing fast. May we each as Christians learn to take our daily preventative to avoid sin infestation.
Cool. Oh, well. I hope, Emmeline, I had switched that to the center. I might not have, so everyone is hearing and maybe not seeing fully like the other ones there. All right, sorry. Good setup. There was a problem. The fleas, the bite, the drama as you went through the story. The cat had fleas. It didn't work. Very good. Very good telling of a story. Could have spent just a little bit more time at the end to make the jump from your real story, because I got a point out of that. You know, if only I had done that, meaning be prepared, but then make a little bit more transition to the spiritual point. Then we would have got, oh, that's what where you were going. Or maybe would have been the introduction. If you had this part of a larger talk, it would have been more obvious. But good, very animated, good presence, good process, good drama with how you presented that. Good gestures. Garrett Pedraza.
Hi, my name is Garrett Pedraza, and I'd like to share with you the story of the prodigal son, found in Luke 15, verses 11 through 32. There are few passages in the entire Bible that lay out the grace of God quite like this one. It's a story of God's unending love and mercy told directly from the mouth of God. And if you're not familiar with it, I'd like to take a second and explain it to you. There's a father who has two sons. The youngest son ends up asking for his inheritance, and the father obliges. When this happens, the son takes his inheritance and goes to a distant land, where he ends up blowing all of his money on wild living. After this, a famine hits the land, and he ends up starving because he has no money or resources. So he ends up getting a job as a farmer feeding pigs. He's so hungry at this point that he wants to eat the pigs' food, but they actually won't let him. At this point, he ends up remembering his father, and he decides that if he goes and asks for help from his father, that his father might allow him to become a slave, and at that point he'd still be treated better than he is now. After rehearsing, he goes back to his father, only to find that his father had been waiting for him this whole time. His father ends up running to him and embraces him and gives him a kiss. At this time, his father decides to throw a party for his son, and we see the eldest son who ends up getting frustrated because he's never been treated this way by his father. He's never had a party thrown for him, and he's never seen what he believes is favor from his father. The father ends up explaining to the eldest son the significance of what is happening. In this story, the father is God, the son, the youngest son, is the unsaved person, and the eldest son is the church. And there's three things that I'd like to point out that maybe you haven't thought of, or maybe just haven't crossed your mind. The first one of significance is that when the father actually gives his son his inheritance, by the son asking to do that, he's telling the father that he's dead to him, that he wants nothing to do with him, and we see this in the fact that he goes to a distant land. This is a symbol of him completely turning his back on the father. The second point is that when the father actually sees the son walking up to him, at this point when the son is coming back home, the father normally in that custom, in that culture, would not have ran and hugged or kissed him. It's a sign of being undignified. And in doing so, he completely made himself undignified. And this is a symbol of what is later to happen on the cross when Jesus does that for us. The third point is that the father tells the eldest son that the youngest was dead. This is actually really significant because never in the Bible does Jesus call a righteous person, or what we would look at today as someone who would make it to heaven, dead. The easiest examples of this are the story of Lazarus. In John chapter 11, verse 11, he says Lazarus is sleeping. He also noted that Jairus' kid was asleep. He doesn't call the kid dead. And there's a couple other examples of this when someone has passed away and raised, and Jesus refers to them as sleeping rather than dead. But in this passage, because of the life of sin, he refers to him as dead. I believe that this story shows God's love and his mercy, maybe better than any other story in the entire Bible, and I just wanted to share it with you today. Thank you.
Great. I'm glad you did. Thank you, Garrett. Very good. Very good. Good clarification of your points. I mean, you gave a whole talk. Let me clarify what we sometimes do. Now, you gave the whole talk, and the point was the illustration, and you gave clarification of the meaning of it as you went on and talked. Sometimes in a larger talk, you did about 4 minutes there. In a larger talk, 14, 15, 20 minutes, 30 minutes, a pastor sometimes will say, this is just like Jesus told, all right, in his outline. He's got 3, 4, 5 points in his outline for his sermon. This is in the third point, and he wants to illustrate what this text is saying, and it reminds him of a parable of Jesus. Well, he would tell just a little story, minute, 2 minutes, and its context then would come in either the rest of the passage that he's actually exegeting, or maybe he's going to preach on this whole parable. And here's the point, Garrett, you did great. I'm not criticizing anything that you did. When we're putting a talk together and we have an illustration in the middle of it, meaning you're going to do talks 5, 6, and 7, you might want to illustrate one of the main points you've just given, point 1, 2, or 3. Yes, you could do it in introduction. Yes, you could do it in the conclusion. But you're going to tell a real quick illustration, story. That's where you get your eyes up and you say, this is just like the time my dog had fleas. Or this is just like the time that Jesus told the story about the Good Shepherd. And you quickly tell the story, make sure you clarify the point, and then you move back into your greater talk. All right, that's where we're going to be using these shorter illustrations. So the skills that you're losing here, where you want to manuscript that section, do it. You've got an illustration, make sure you get the wording right, you practice it so you can get freedom from your notes and look up, but make sure that you are clear about the point so you know what it's illustrating and does it fit with your greater talk or the part of your greater talk. All right, good. Thanks, Garrett. Josiah Stout.
God loves to use our weaknesses as a chance to show his power. To illustrate this, I want to share a story of 2 hunters. The first hunter was powerful. He had gone on many hunting expeditions. If you were to go into his house, you'd see moose heads and deer heads on the wall. He was a very influential and powerful hunter. The second hunter, not as much. In fact, he wasn't really a hunter because he only owned a bow and arrow. Nothing against bow and arrows, but he had never even hunted with them. And so he wanted to, he just hadn't gotten there yet. So one day, these 2 hunters, friends as they were, they went on a hunting trip. And on this trip, they came across a few good opportunities. The first opportunity came when the hunter with the gun, number 1, he saw a moose, or hunting for moose. He saw the moose 100 yards away, so he got out his gun, whipped it out, he got on one knee, he killed that moose. Like it was dead the moment he pulled the trigger. And the rest going there was like, wow, that was amazing. Man, I want to do that. But the hunter said, you know what? I think you should stick with your bow and arrow though for now. Start with that. So they kept on hunting, and then out of the blue, they saw another moose 100 yards away, off in the distance. And the guy with the bow and arrow, he also got down on one knee, he bent back his string, aimed, whoosh, let that arrow fly. And he looked at the moose to see if it had gotten hit with the arrow. And mind you, if you are hunting moose with a bow and arrow, there's only one place that you can hit that moose to kill it, and that is through the heart. You don't get it through the heart, it's not dead. And it wasn't moving. Then slowly it fell down, and it was dead. He had killed the moose with a bow and arrow. That's amazing. Now I want to ask you guys a question. Which hunter do you think received the most praise when they went back? The second hunter, right? The one with the bow and arrow. That's not every day you shoot a moose and kill it with a bow and arrow. And he received the most praise because of his weakness. He wasn't a good hunter. He was weak. But in his weakness, because he succeeded, he got more glory. And it's the same with God. I want to read a verse. 2 Corinthians 12:9 says, "But he said to me, my grace is sufficient for you, for my power is made perfect in weakness. Therefore I will boast all the more gladly of my weaknesses, so that the power of Christ may rest upon me." God loves to use us in our weaknesses, in our inabilities, when we don't feel confident. And sometimes we might feel like a powerful intellectual gun that is just ready to fire away. And other times we may feel weak, like a bow and arrow, that it's kind of flimsy and it's harder to control. But when we do feel like that, God loves to use us because it gives Him even more glory. So God loves to use our weaknesses as an opportunity to show Him even more glory.
Great. Thank you, Josiah. Very animated. Help us to see everything. Good drama with your voice, with the words. Good setup with the point and clarification of the point at the end. Just a minor detail. There were some sentences you get real quiet. You drop off and get quiet and we'd miss a word. Yes, there was variety, and so when we're doing variety, yes, that means volume variety, loud, soft. Just be careful at the end of sentences, and I'm saying that to all of us, that we don't get so quiet we miss a word. The audience will miss a word. Good job. Good story. Moses, Wasfa.
The parable of the sower is recorded in the New Testament. Matthew 13:1-23. Jesus used this parable as an illustration to show how we respond to God's word. The human heart is likened to the receptive soil, to the seed of the word of God. The soil that the seed fell on represents the four categories of human hearts and the four different reactions to the word of God. The hard heart represents or shows the seed that fell alongside the road. The shallow heart, the seed that fell on the stony ground. The grounded heart is the seed that fell on the thorny ground. And the last one, which was the fruitful heart, was the seed that fell on a fertile ground. The main idea, we are the ones to determine what kind of soils our hearts will be. We decide whether we want our hearts to be hard, thorny, crowded, or fruitful. God has given us the freedom of choice. With so many things that happen around us, we can get distracted and fail to listen to His voice speaking in our lives.
You turn that down just.
I don't know how.
What we give most priority in life is what exactly dominates our lives. As Christians, our desire is to be fruitful. But the discipline that comes with this blessing is called obedience. We can change the world around us by allowing God to change our hearts. It all begins with our character. What we take in and what we take out, or what we give out. We are the light of the world, and God wants us to represent His kingdom on earth and share the good news with those around us. The Great Commission is our goal.
Great. Thank you, Moses. Thank you, Moses. Clear, good setup, good volume, good variety. What if you told the story? How would you tell the story? You told us the points of the story. Jesus told the story, explained the story, told the parable. This is just like a farmer who goes out in the field and sows seeds. Some of the seed he sows falls on the path and it doesn't germinate. Some of the seed that he sows falls on soil that there's rock right under the ground. Some of the seed falls in thorny areas, and some of the seed falls on good soil. All right, tell us a story and then explain the story. I'm thinking of, for this illustration, Moses and others, don't just tell us about it, help us to see it by actually animating, meaning moving and describing in a story, and that'll add life to your talks. Good presentation though, Moses, as you talked, good variety. We definitely got the point. We definitely explained it. All right, those are those that I have on. Andrea Robinson is doing talk number 1. So get out a sheet or remind yourself of talk number 1. Andrea Robinson is introducing somebody.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Andrea Robinson, and I have the pleasure of introducing our guest speaker. This morning's speaker is an accomplished individual in the area of employee stock ownership plans known as ESOPs. He has been very gracious to give his time to speak about the benefits of implementing ESOPs into your own businesses. Our guest speaker became passionate about ESOPs while working on his family's farm in the King Ranch. During this time, he was trying to support himself through college and postgraduate school. And because of his hard work and dedication, he graduated from Texas A&M University Kingsville with a BBA in finance and received his law degree and MBA from Texas Tech University. In addition, he is the founder and CEO of Cornerstone Fiduciary Services and serves as a member of the ESOP Association and the National Center for Employee Membership. He has over 20 years of experience in major law, accounting and financial advisement, and working as an independent fiduciary to ESOPs around the United States. Our accomplished guest speaker is a father of 7 children with another one on the way. When he is not working, our guest speaker enjoys spending time with his family, bird watching, and studying the Bible. Because of his passion, our guest speaker hopes to educate the next generation of entrepreneurs, including his children, on the benefits of including an ESOP in their own businesses. Please join me in welcoming this morning's speaker, Christopher Robinson.
Hey, welcome, Christopher Robinson. All right, sorry, Andrea and all of you, I didn't switch it over to just a camera there, so you just see her. Good, clear voice. Use a little bit more volume, a little bit more emphasis, a little more variety. Watch the ends of your sentences to speak clearly through. Good eye contact. Good qualifications on this person. Now, this is in a context, I didn't understand the acronym, the ESOP. If you were in a meeting of ESOP, everybody understand. Help maybe someone who's a guest. That might be a time where we could, and this is just a thing for us to think about. In the context, might there be someone there who doesn't know that acronym for that word? Thank you, Andrea. Talk number 2, Emily. No, we're going to go Charlie Smith. Charlie's going to do a talk 1.
Good afternoon, everyone. Today's speaker is a widely talented professional baby with over 2 years of experience. She's coming to your classroom to share her tips and tricks on just how to be a baby. She might be young, but this girl's an expert on this topic. Being a baby is one of the only things she's ever known. This makes her extremely knowledgeable, so knowledgeable that she's constantly learning and surprising the people around her. Some of her favorite things in her baby life are playing with kittens, stirring up trouble, and spending time with her older siblings. This little lady loves being a baby, but recently has been growing like a weed. She loves having concerts for her family, hitting every lyric along the way. Our guest speaker's favorite way to interrupt is insisting she needs to be doing homework while the older siblings are doing theirs. Always wanting to be a big kid, this baby always finds herself involved in her older siblings' lives. She loves being the boss and always playing her role of Queen Bee. She's an expert at explaining exactly what she's wanting, being a baby, and perfectly reciting Disney's Frozen's Let It Go. Let's not forget her heart-melting snuggles that always make up for any mischief caused. Please help me welcome the baby of the family and our tiny speaker, Everly Holland Smith.
Very creative, Charlie. Good sense of humor. Very appropriate for the context. Just gave us details about the person we could identify. Not only light, just in the tone and the topic and the subject rather you chose there, but good qualities. You understand the details that we need to include in a talk to introduce somebody. Appreciate your humor. Very good specifics. Then we're going to go to William Strawn, which is at Talk 2. So get out that sheet and look out for Talk 2 for telling a story illustration. William Strawn. Oh, that's right. All right, it'll come up. William's video I couldn't get on my thumb drive that I put them all on that allows me to go through them quickly rather than waiting. He had it here at Canvas and it has to open up. The file has to open up. It'll be open in a minute.
Hello, my name is William Strawn, and I'm just joyful to be able to spend a few moments with you today sharing really just a nugget of truth from God's Word. You know, the love of Christ is so immense that we may fail to fully understand everything that God has given to us. You may know of God's love, but have you experienced it? The many examples of the love of Christ written throughout the Bible could be considered innumerable. Perhaps the most well-known verse in all of Scripture comes to mind, John 3:16. Another familiar verse, Romans 5:8, is certainly fitting as well. His love for the world, despite the abundance of sin, is quite remarkable and possibly not fully appreciated. Such as warning a child of a hot stove, this knowledge of danger is not as impactful until personally experienced. The Gospel of Mark is known for being short and to the point, a fast-moving book about the life of Christ. Surprising is one little extra detail this author provides in the account of the rich young ruler. A man simply known as the rich young ruler asked a question. This man, who had implied wealth, likely was well educated, and known for political powers, asked Jesus what he must do to inherit eternal life. Interestingly, Jesus had just provided this answer to a gathered crowd, using the submissive and humble spirit of a child as the answer to his question. Even so, Jesus answers this man's question with a series of questions intended to corral him into the right direction. When questioned on physical actions such as refraining from adultery, murder, theft, lying, and honoring his parents, the rich young ruler stated he had observed all of these actions. Jesus, knowing the heart of the man, replied that he lacked one thing. Sell all that you have, give to the poor, and come. Take up your cross and follow me. This matter of the heart was too much, and this man left the presence of Jesus, grieving because he had great possessions. At least one application from this account in God's Word is the depth of his love. Jesus in the story of the rich young ruler not only exhibited a misplaced trust in riches, but provided an example of his love. You see, verse 21 tells us Jesus was looking at him. We already know this because of the conversation that was taking place. However, this word look, here in the original language, meant to ponder or to consider with the mind. Even though Jesus fully knew this man's heart and everything about him, Jesus still loved him. The next time you fail to sin, realize and know God loves you with a love deeper than you can fully grasp. To this I say, praise the Lord.
Very good. Very good. All right, William. Very good. Good use of your notes. You're holding them. It's hard. You didn't flip with them. You got good eye contact as you're talking with them. Good voice. Practice for better eye contact when you're telling a story, because that's when people's eyes will look up. Also, you've got notes. What would you do? You either set them down or you keep them in your hand. You can keep them in your hand while you're telling the story. This is like Jesus told a story, and you get more eye contact than you do using the notes. So that's a practice issue for all of us. When you talk and use the word you, make sure you're either saying that you or you get eye contact real quickly when you're speaking to the audience or saying a very important truth. What do we do when I want to be looking at the people? So we want to practice those things. It's where people suggest using a mirror as you're preparing a talk so you can look at people when you look at the mirror as if you're looking at the people, and someone can help you get the interplay there. One more, Emily Walls, a talk 2. All right, Emily, where do I have yours? Oh, I know where it is. It's not. All right, I'm going to have to type it in YouTube. See if I can get the accurate. Hang on with me, everybody, here for a second. There we
Have you ever been lost? No.
All right, hang on, Emily. Make sure we're set up. And you were doing an illustration. Emily Walls.
Not knowing where you are or where you're going.
I'm going to back it up.
Have you ever been lost? Not knowing where you are or where you're going? This is a serious problem, both physically and spiritually. As a kid, getting lost in a crowd was my #1 fear. It's not as crippling now, thankfully, but one event sticks out in my mind. When I was about 7 years old, Dad took us to the big city to watch fireworks for the 4th of July. So here we are, in a crowd, at night, and I just knew that I was going to lose my death grip on Mom's hand and be all alone in this sea of strangers. I was planning ahead, though. I would find a policeman and beg them to help me find my mommy. But that's where my plan fell apart. I also knew that they would ask for my parents' names, and in my panic state, I would completely blank out. It didn't happen.
My parents never lost me in a crowd, but who says childhood fears have to be based on fact? Physically, I was safe. Spiritually, though, I had been lost. 2 years prior to this event, Mom and Dad were having devotions with us one evening before we were putting us to bed when I realized I was lost. My parents knew that when they died, they were going straight to heaven. But I knew that I couldn't just hang on to a hand and follow them there. And I certainly could never find the way on my own. But in Luke 19:10, Jesus says that the Son of Man has come to seek and to save that which was lost. Where are you? Are you lost spiritually, not knowing where you're going? When you die, where you're going to spend your eternity? Or have you been found by the God who humbled himself to become a man, lived on earth, died, and rose again to seek and save you? Where are you?
Excellent, excellent. Excellent there, Emily. Good beginning with the questions.
Good grammar and spelling are important, but if you want to write essays that inspire...
The problem with YouTube, it keeps going on there, forgot. The voice, variety, emphasis, emotion. Now, did you all listen when Emily, a light moment, soft moment, her voice went up, but when it was a serious moment, her pitch, the rate, the pauses, she got a little bit heavier with the voice. I mean, it came down with the pitch and the good variety with the volume, good eye contact. You told the story, there was plot, and that's what we're trying to do, help people to see the drama. The farmer goes out and sows seeds. Oh, wow. It got eaten by birds. He throws it into the shallow soil with the rocks. Didn't come up, didn't last long. Came up, didn't last long. All right, the way we tell a story will communicate emotion and intensify the drama until you get to the good soil. And it produced. Yeah, there were rocks, but it didn't hinder it. Yes, there was the birds, but they germinated. They took seed. Yes, there were thistles and thorns, but that didn't hinder it from producing a bumper crop, 30, 60, 100-fold. All right, we want to put drama in there, appropriate drama. Good example there, Emily. All right, you've all have communicated. If there's a couple others, and I think there's a few that I've missed, maybe you've already put it in. Maybe I have not checked Teams here today. Please get your videos in Teams or a link to YouTube, and you can either put it in Canvas or send me an email. Best in Canvas, because then it's there. You know I've got it, and it's not lost in my inbox of my emails in a pile of them, which I get, but I try to respond to them all. That's just a better place to put an assignment for any of us professors. Next week, you're going to come back and do the same thing, record one talk, 3 or 4, but let's take a break, and then I'm going to introduce it. right, welcome to this last hour. And I'm just speaking to an empty room and we won't have interaction. We'll probably be done in just a few minutes, not taking a whole hour is what it won't take because I won't have the dialogue with you. So important. There are some studies that demonstrate 70% of communication comes through your presence, your eyes, your gestures, your movement, your voice, your variety of voice. It's so important that we need to think of that aspect of our communication, not only our words. Also, for the handout for this session on talks 3 and 4, there is a handout that I have with the link below the video link here today for this video that you're watching that's relative to commemorative talks. You could open it up, have it ready. We're going to be looking at that as well. Well, let's think about talk number 3 first. Let's talk about that. When someone receives an award or give an award, we give a talk to present. You could also do a talk to receive, but I'm not asking you to do that. Those are usually very brief, but I'm going to introduce it to you. Rather, if you choose talk number 3, you will be presenting an award to someone. You'll have a table of awards, and you're going to have one of them that apply to the person you're going to give the award to, or maybe you're going to come up carrying the award. What do you do with it? Where do you stand with it? Set it when you're using it. When we think of the talk to award, it could be something as very brief as, and the winner is, because the verbiage about the award and the setup was done in some other way. And so your purpose is to walk up and say, and the winner is, and you say the name, the person walks up, you do the photo op, hand them the award, do the photo op. Real simple. Or it could be 4 or 5 minute talk. Those awards that you saw, the evaluations you selected here for this next week that you're going to look at, you're going to see people presenting awards, and some of them are a little longer. For most purposes, you're going to do just a few minutes. The talk to commemorate is also going to be very brief, but it could be longer. Well, we're going to talk about that. How do we give a talk to award? Do your homework. You need to understand something about the award. What does it stand for? Is there a meaningful tradition behind it? It's given every year at the awards banquet for the, all right, there's a tradition to it. It's given every year to the individual who, now we're talking about criteria, but I need to do my background. What does the award stand for? Is there a meaningful tradition? Do I know something about the recipient, the person receiving it? This year's recipient went above and beyond the criteria for the award that you already mentioned by doing, you want to say a little bit about the recipient as you know them without taking too much time or saying something that's inappropriate. Things about the recipient that the audience would find very interesting, meaning, wow, I didn't know that he did that much. I didn't know that she did it that well. That's the kind of information you're going for. Can you describe why this person was chosen to receive the award? This year there were 500 potential candidates for this award. The committee had to narrow it down to 5. Boy, was that a hard task. But then going that 5 down to 1 because this individual stood out because they did this and this. Those were all worthy individuals, but this person outshone them all. So what you want to do is tell a good story. What that means is you come to a point in your talk where one of the points is why this person deserves it over all others. They're qualified, but this person began in the job, didn't know, they took extra effort, stayed extra hours, and then when it came to actually doing the task, they took initiative. All right, I'm giving details that help people to see the person doing that which convinced those that had to decide for the award that this person deserves it. So you tell a story. You spin a yarn with the recipient as the hero. You talk about the significance of the award and the value that it represents. Wow, it's given every year to the individual who demonstrates, and you help the people that are listening in the award ceremony to understand the impact of the award and the history behind it. You're telling a story. You explain how the recipient embodies the values the award honors. Now, I'm describing that, which you could talk a lot about. Again, it's a short, brief talk, couple minutes, and you want to get right to the point, like you did with the introduction. Is there a story behind the recipient and their winning the award? You want to create drama whenever possible. They did this and failed. They did that and failed, but they kept at it until, now you don't want to over-exaggerate. You don't want to say that which is wrong. You don't want to embarrass people. You don't want to put the competition in a negative light. Well, they're a bunch of losers. And this. No, you're focusing on the recipient while you're saying there were worthy people, but this one outshone them all. Remember, the details matter. Remember, the point is to honor the recipient. So where you stand when you're giving the award, the person comes up, you don't want to have them, well, you don't want to do that where it's behind you. They're behind you. Yeah, their face is seen, but they aren't seen. You know, you stand in a place where they're given honor. Maybe it's for the camera. All right, so you think of those details. Now, for our purposes here, you're going to come up. You're just going to give the speech. You're not going to actually have something in your hand. You're not going to award it to someone. No one else is going to come up. But you're going to give the talk. But think about those things. How you hold, how you position the award will add or take away from the feeling of honor. You don't want to be flippant with it, waving it around, treating it disrespectful. If you're actually giving the award, what would you do? You have it in your left hand. Most people are right-handed. Most people shake with their right hand. So you have the award in your left hand, they came up. You extend your hand while you reach out, or you reach out, give them the award, but extend your hand to shake. So you've got to think that through as you hand it to them. Then they take it, you turn them around, they have the award in their hand. Be careful whether you touch or don't touch the person. You know, you're just wanting to get close. Motion for them, or perhaps just gently turn them so they can stand in front of the camera. And you can get both of them now. You presented the award, them holding it. All right, you got to think of the award and practice that. Think of the photo op. Do's and don'ts of presenting awards. These are just general rules of thumb, depending on the context in which you're doing it. Sometimes all the award recipients will be here in a long line. You're the next presenter, you come up, everyone knows they're there. But let's say, like our awards ceremony at the spring, when we have an awards chapel, people come up and people are in the audience. They don't know who got the award. Only the faculty do, or only the committee in that department know. Don't bring the person to the lectern before you give the presentation. That's usually what happens. You build a little drama, you tell the story, and now as you're telling the story, there are people that go, oh, I know who you're talking about. But the rest of the audience doesn't. They're just hearing and focusing on all these accomplishments. Who in the world did that? And then you say the name, just like we do with an introduction. And they're sort of, really? I got the award? You built a little drama. Don't hand over an unsigned certificate or diploma. Now, that's not your responsibility normally. You're just the presenter. But in some cases, that's your responsibility. Make sure it's all ready to hand to them so when they have it, they can walk away. There are some situations where you hand the person an unfilled folder, and they know that. But don't surprise them. Don't let them get away without an unsigned or unfilled award. Don't stand so the audience can't see. I've already mentioned that. Do make sure you can pronounce the person's name and pronounce it correctly. So practice it, ask them, just like we did with the talk to introduce. And do hold the award, make sure you pronounce it correctly, do give the audience some background, do hold the award as though it were of high value. I mean, it's an honored thing, it's an honor for them, but hold it like it's a very fragile, important thing. What's the order of presentation? Now we're thinking of outline for our talk. If you haven't been introduced, tell the audience. So as you're writing your outline, here's your introduction, the bodies, the points that you want to make. But in the introduction, now you're thinking of your manuscript, that'd be those 1 or 2 sentences that you start out, and then you'd have 3, 4 paragraphs that talk about the award, the recipient. You would say, hi, my name is Mike Dodds, I'm the chairman of I'm the coach of all right, there. In an awards ceremony, there's usually a number of people presenting awards, and who are you, why are you qualified to come up and present it? That just help the audience, because there's a number of people there that won't know. If you haven't been introduced, sometimes it's obvious who you are, and so you wouldn't need to say that. I'm honored to present this award this year. The award is given to, all right, that was all you needed to say in the introduction. Give a brief history of the award, so your first paragraph. It's given every year or two, a sentence, 2 sentences. Outline the criteria. It's given because people exemplify themselves in character, in their GPA, and in their performance in whatever the criteria are. General for everybody. Now, briefly outline how the recipient met the award. So the first paragraph, the award, when it's given, why it's given, and the criteria, why it's given. Now, the recipient. Briefly outline how this recipient met those criteria you've just mentioned. Don't mention the recipient's name to the end, normally. Enthusiastically start the applause when you're done. With that description, if you go back to those points that I made earlier, you introduce the award. It's given every year and these are the criteria. This year's recipient, there were how many people involved, and they all had to meet that criteria. They all met it, or out of all the people that were considered, X number met the criteria, but out of that we had to choose, and they were all eminently qualified. And now why does this one? So you want to focus, you hear the progression down to the individual, and then you eventually introduce them. Briefly outline how, okay, I'm at number 5. Even if the audience already knows who the recipient is, don't mention the recipient's name normally until the end. Pause for a beat or 2 before announcing it with lots of excitement in your voice. Be careful, don't overdoing it, being hammy, but make sure you're enthusiastic. If the audience, and normally the audience will start applauding, but if they don't, you start applauding, and then you move over, pick up the award as the individual comes. Here's another point. If the recipient doesn't know what to do, you're seeing them, you say, come on up, Joe. If you don't see where they're at, you'll have to say their name. If you see them, motion them on up. Now there's a very real, there's a very informal, they're shocked, they don't know what to do, you're helping them out, you're being a good friend. If the recipient doesn't know what to do, issue a clear invitation to join you at the lectern, and then you actually make the physical presentation. As I said, you don't have to actually make a physical presentation here. You just come up as if you're the next person to present an award, stop, make sure your notes are out. Hi, I'm so-and-so from, and I'm here to present the award, which is given every year or 2, and this individual this year, and you go through your award, let's honor, and you say the name, and start the applause. What if you were actually receiving an award? There's a little talk that goes with that. If you've been invited to an award ceremony and you think you might be in the running, let me give out a hint. Professors here at the end of the year, we have an award ceremony, you'll get a phone call, hey, are you going to be at chapel that day? Don't cut. Hint, 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 hint is what they're giving. we're going to get an award of some form. All right, that's where it's going to happen. Sometimes you can prepare them. If you have a guess, be ready. You can go simply through your mind with a quick jot outline. We're going to talk about outlines, but here's what you can do. Think of the elements in a talk to receive. Give thanks to the award. A speech of acceptance, accepting the speech. The main purpose is to thank everyone for the recognition. Thank you. Could be just a simple thank you. Don't be an aw shucks or no, I don't deserve it. Don't say that. But you want me to give a sincere thank you. I want to thank the professors who saw in me things that I guess I didn't see in myself, but I sure aspired because of their leadership. You want to make the focus out again, even though the attention's on you, honor other people. So what do we do? Main elements: brevity, short, 30 seconds. Gratitude, thank you to the organization, and speak highly of the competition. Boy, there are so many other worthy people. I thank you for the honor that you bestow on me. There are so many others that also merit that recognition. Share the praise. There are others that helped you. This is where I want to thank my mom, I want to thank my cat, I want to thank my dog and my Uncle Sam. All right, be careful with it. But give recognition. I had a coach, I had a trainer, and that person stuck in when I didn't think I'd make it. They saw something I didn't see in myself, and so you want to honor them. Structure of this talk: opening thanks, thank you to the organization, speak of the competition, share the glory with those that were involved but behind the scenes, and then conclude with, and so I thank you, and walk off. Round of applause. Questions? You may choose to do a talk to commemorate or to accept. Let me get the shiny sheet out. If you were to flip to the assignment sheet, you could go to Calvary here and go to your department and find out what awards are given. So you've opened up the sheet, and both of them are together, 3 and 4 on one sheet here. Go look at the 3 side. Contact the degree advisor or your department concerning an award given by your department. You're aware of what they give each year. If the department doesn't have any awards, discuss one which should be given by the department if they have some ideas, but they just have never done it or could be given. If you want to go outside of your degree department, you could contact the athletic office, the Christian ministry office, the student dean's office, or some of you aren't on campus here or don't have a connection, aren't aware of things that go on here. What award do you know is given? It could be the Juana Timothy Award. It could be an award you've gotten in the past, an award that someone else has gotten in your family or someone that you know. An award that you know something about, and a recipient that you know something about, that you could do this talk honestly, meaning you're doing it out of a known quantity, so you can think through all those categories that I was introducing, that I've introduced there. Select an award that you've received or awarded by another person. Okay, find an award. If it's talking to a person, department chair, athletic coach, what's the award's title, the reasons why it's given, the name of a recipient of the award, and the reasons why they received. You go to the department chair, who got it last year and why they get it. Listen to them talk. And then put together your notes into this talk. And then any other necessary details, background information needed to make this award. Let's flip to talk number 4. To commemorate or to celebrate. Celebrate an occasion or an event. These are given to celebrate an achievement or a holiday, given to pay tribute to a person or a group. So you see a variety of things that we can give this talk for. This implies that they will be a little bit longer. For our purposes though, keep it short, 2-3 minutes, still hold it into that time, but realize there are occasions where you can have a whole speech commemorating an event. I've given July 4th talks. I've given anniversary and wedding talks. A little bit longer, some of them just like a normal sermon, 40, 45 minutes. But got to know the occasion. Its primary purpose is to inspire people. And what do I mean by inspire? Wow, July 4th, we come and go, we enjoy the fireworks and the cookouts, but it's good to remember what that's all about when our nation was founded. Labor Day, wow, we didn't do a lot of we did a lot of laboring on Labor Day, but why do we celebrate it? An anniversary, wow, you've been married for 50 years. A birthday, Grandpa, you're 90 years old. Wow, you've lived a long time. A wedding anniversary, or a wedding ceremony, excuse me. You just got married. We want to celebrate with you. All right. Its primary purpose is to inspire. If it's a person, then respect for that person. It's very close to an award, but you're not actually presenting an award, you're giving an honor. So you're extending it beyond. It's not talking about the award, it's rather, you got this medal. Yeah, it's an award, but I want to honor you. I didn't present the medal to you. I want to come up and talk about it. At a funeral, the person that's coming up from the family, representing the family, for giving a eulogy, saying good words, eulogeo, good words, logeo, is not giving the sermon. Rather, you're coming up and talking about my dad. He's laying in the casket in front of you. I want to say a little bit about my dad. I want to honor him for the impact he's had in my life and how he'll be missed. Or my aunt, or you go on from there. If it's an occasion, inspire the feelings which the occasion engenders. What's the feeling of freedom? What's the feeling of good, honest work? What's the feeling of Memorial Day, or Valentine's Day, or Grandparents' Day, or Christmas, or Easter, or Thanksgiving? How do we do it? Kinds of occasions to celebrate: anniversaries, birthdays, reunions. Reunion, go back. 50 years since we graduated from high school. How many of us are still living? But it's a good time to get together. You're going to get those flyers from the alumni office of all the schools you graduated from, high school and on. It could be the reunion of a work group. It could be a reunion of a military unit years later. Memorial services, funeral comments. Memorial, the body's not here, we're remembering the person, or remember the group. A number of memorial services were had for these soldiers that died in Afghanistan, the 13 individuals in that suicide attack. The funeral comments that you give. Awards, dedications, not the award itself, but maybe just an honoring of the occasion. You're there to say, we're here to honor tonight. We're here to give awards. And you can set the tone with a talk that commemorates the evening. You're not giving an award, you're commemorating. Weddings, definitely the best man, the bride, maid of honor. Another individual wants to get up and give a toast. Now, don't give a toast for this talk, rather honor them. This is my brother and his wife now. And I've known him as a brother, but now he's a husband. What would you say that's appropriate? Retirements, done a lot of those in the military and with other people. They've finished a career. Holidays. Common characteristics. I'm going to admire. I want to communicate admiration, respect for the person, the group, the occasion. I'm going to focus on positive qualities, good things about them. I remember an individual who got up and talked about remembering their dad. And they focused on, I want to talk about Dad's hands. And then they used that as an illustration of positive qualities. His hands were strong. His hands were big, they could care. His hands were strong, they could support. His hands were hard, they disciplined. He disciplined me. His hands were loving and soft when they needed to be to show love and care for me. All right, you focus on an attribute of the person that highlights who they are, their humility, their perseverance, their dedication, their honesty, their loyalty, their service, and then you're going to give examples of it, either with an imagery that then you tie with examples, or my dad's loyal. He was loyal when he was in high school. He was loyal when he was in the military. He was loyal when he was married to my mom for 56 years. He was loyal after her death to the whole family and the heritage of his wife and the family. All right, positive qualities. You want to highlight the accomplishments and difficulties that it took to overcome to win this honor in life, in the achievement, in the occasion. Reflection on positive impact and contribution. Either the focus on that group and what they contributed. You're not giving an award, but you're just trying to honor this group. Wow, you as a group, you just won the recipient of the Attaboy Award that we give to every work group throughout the year. Right, that award was given. Now you're going to get up and talk a little bit more about it because you're the supervisor. You want to show the positive impact of this person, their contribution, their occasion, its impact on you. Gratefully acknowledge what the listener can learn from this person, this group, or this occasion. We all can take comfort from this person's faithfulness. We all should be inspired because of this occasion to continue. All right, bring your audience in. Help them to see the impact of it. When speaking to commemorate, your success will depend on your ability to put into language the thoughts and emotions appropriate to the occasion without falling back on cliches or trite statements. Cliches, those words that are overused. Wow, he's outstanding. He's awesome. They could never fail. Yeah, they probably did though. So you don't want to overstate. Don't go back to trite figures of speech, cliches. That's what those become. Rather, use very accurate, specific wording that is fresh, it's new, it's appropriate for the occasion, the purpose, that honor that you're bestowing upon them. You must work to paint a picture with your words. Think of Lincoln's Gettysburg Address. The gentleman before him spoke for 3 hours, we remember nothing. Lincoln got up with those few words, those few hundred words, captured it, written on an envelope as he's riding on the train from Washington. But yet he worked at his words, started with those historical time markers. Martin Luther King's I Have a Dream, JFK's Go to the Moon speech. Think back to those examples that we had just for this class. Figures of speech help. Make sure they're fresh, not trite. Similes, metaphors, parallelism, repetition, alliteration, those all help. Well, how do we prepare a talk to commemorate, celebrate? Do your research. Who's your audience? What's your purpose? It's to honor, it's to celebrate. And this specific aspect, is it a family that you're talking to? Your family? Are they co-workers? Are they parents? Think of the audience. And why is this meaningful to them? Are you the only speaker or one in a series? Sometimes on an occasion to honor, one person's going to come up and talk about one aspect, another aspect. When Dr. Cohn, president, before Dr. Granados was inaugurated, I was asked to come and speak as the faculty representative. So I came up and spoke as the faculty representative to welcome and encourage Dr. Cohn in his relationship with us as faculty. Another, Randy Grimm, came up and talked about the staff out of his role in that area. Another individual came up and talked about the alumni. Another individual came up from the board and talked about Board of Trustees relationship. Know your role, know what you're going to talk about so you don't steal thunder from somebody else. Also know the time. Are you the only speaker or one in series? If multiple, what's to be your focus? How unique? How long are you expected to talk? At Dr. Cohn's inauguration, I was given 90 seconds by Dr. Bittner. 90 seconds. That's all I had. I had to say it clearly. Is the event formal or informal? You're dealing with the issues of respect and honor, seriousness, lightness. Is it more like a roast, or is it a eulogy? Something very serious, good words when they passed. Are there any special requirements for the event, for the organization that's giving it, that you must include, or things that you should not include? So learn all these things, do your background study, do your research. Second, select a topic, a theme, and write a main idea. Write a through line. That through line, that theme that goes throughout, but that whole phrase, that whole sentence. July 4th and freedom liberates us all. The freedom of our country. I'm making something up off the top of our head, but that's the theme that's going to be woven throughout. Is it determined by the occasion, the 70th birthday, July 4th? Specifically, does it come from the special occasion, Christmas Day 2016, Christmas Day 2021? Get the input from the event organizer as you're selecting your topic and theme, or find out what's been done in the past by other speakers, those who've been at the event in previous occasions, maybe done what you've done. That handout that I asked you to open up here, let me put it on the screen for us. Yeah. So you look at this handout of commemorative talks, speech talking themes. Let me just put it on the screen. Oh, I can't do that. Gotta leave it there. You can't hear me, but I switch to that next one. Notice the listing of themes at the top. That's just to whet your appetite. There's so many more you could focus on. Questions below, and then how to structure this talk, and then some other examples on the back. But select a theme, a characteristic that would seem appropriate for this occasion, this person. Write your outline and then your manuscript. You start like you do with any outline, and you draw on examples, testimonies, personal stories, even statistics which tell the audience why this person is praiseworthy, and do so with an inspiring manner, an inspiring tone. Good emphasis to your voice and your face. Looking at the person every once in a while. Speaking to the person, perhaps, if that person's there. If it's Grandpa, say, Grandpa, I love you. Will there be emotion? Yes. Funerals, people break down and cry. Nothing wrong with that. Compose yourself, get back on track, and finish. But don't be afraid of it. All right, the question that we have is, what will we do? You have the opportunity to select either an award to present next week, or an occasion or a person to commemorate, honor, celebrate, and not do number 3. I'm fumbling with my words because I started out wrong. Look at number 4. Use the handout provided in class, that one that I just showed you on the screen, and identify a person or an event. Write out that main idea statement that captures it. Flip it to the back. There's information about person or occasion. Next, write out an outline. And this will have 3, 4, it depends on what it takes for you to express the honor, the appreciation, and to commemorate. For the presentation notes, it's going to be a manuscript. All right, same thing, you're going to write it out, whether it's to award, write out a manuscript, you're going to have it folded You're going to probably be looking at it to make sure you get the details right. Same thing with this to commemorate, but you want to get a little bit more eye contact and use a little bit more emotion than a talk to award. Because this gets a little bit more personal, a little bit more passionate. For all of you that are not in class, make sure you record it in Teams by at least noon next Monday, or give me your YouTube link and post it in Canvas if you can, or send me an email about that. For the rest that are in class, we're going to do the same thing. You're going to come up and present, but you're going to do it in class actually next Monday. Let me know any questions anyone has about how to do this talk, and let's come back and do just as well as we did with talks 1 and 2. You all have a good week in the Lord.